Hello, I'm Joseph. This is coming to an end. The ESP32-C6 issues with connecting with Wi-Fi and all this other stuff is now resolved. I'm able to connect. I got my IP address here. I was able to get the internal IP address. It authorized it with the SSID. I'm not sure wherever that's at right here. Um, and it works. So next would be networking and stuff like that, but I don't think it will be important for a video, or at least for right now. It was just how did I get to that last point here, which was the most tedious one. One, obviously, the figuring out this stuff wasn't fun, and then trying to taking a step back and seeing how this is going to even work in the future for this guy is a little bit more than I want to take on. But basically, what has happened is if I go back to the IDF sys here, was that they built everything for Extensia, or this whole thing here, and it's a manual C translate with some hand editing. So that means if even if I was to do this, it wouldn't work because I have to go and hand edit this stuff. And I just opted for that anyways. My idea was to just completely abandon this type of integration and just do Zig to C rather than all Zig all the way down. And so instead, what I did was, if I open up my expand here, I went through the tedious process of doing find and grep. Find to find the missing includes needed to do a translate C on my C version of code. So that means every time I want to have any new feature like the HTTP header stuff, I need to create a C variant of that and then get the imported or translated version of that as well into the idf.sys zig. And then if there's any particular defines or C macros I need to do, I need a grep for if there's any if defs and stuff like that, because usually it will create errors. Which means that this probably isn't even like fully 100%. On top of that, there are specific things to my processor that is in, or my microprocessor that's on my little dev board. And on top of that, it is pulling in the versions that is in my expressive thing. And I'm like, oh, that looks familiar because it's also in the build dot zig, which is here, but it's an older version. So um, this would all need to like pull automatically or have the user define these things, as well as their board that they're developing on. They shouldn't have to be creating their own IDF sys with a C version of everything they just literally use so it can get pulled in correctly. And then the last bit here was even after I did all that, I did have to do two minor changes. If I go to the IDF sys, uh, I had to change the Wi-Fi from opaque back to that structure. Although it could technically stay opaque, I would just recast it in a like another different file, like the Wi-Fi one. But there was like an app main generated here that I had to go and change. And then this changed how errors worked because now all errors are part of the global scope rather than individually contained. And I think this is what this the other guy was doing was he was just trying to group all these other errors together nicely, neatly together. But after I generated this, Wi-Fi just it started working. That was it. That's all I need to do. So I deleted app main because it was already declared in here and it was declared in my Zig. And then I changed the opaque. And then I had to go through all the little import things here and change how the errors were being picked up because now they were global spaced and no longer kind of embedded into an enum because there's no enums that were used in the first place. Um, so I think this is a much more approachable way, but it's just how to automate this moving forward. I don't know. And then the last little bit was I wanted to get my sysconfig, my SDK config here. Let's see, SDK. Well, it won't open it because I'm guessing it's a get ignore. But it was this stuff needed to be translated into my Zig code so I can pull from this instead. And I didn't need to do that. Apparently, there was already a SDK config header file. Actually, I need to go to Wi-Fi for this. And so I just did the absolute path because the relative path wasn't working, and I would need to set up an include path, but then my include path wasn't working for some reason. And I was getting a little bit frustrating, but then I figured, oh yeah, it's a module thing, so maybe I got to put it in the module, not in the lib itself. But I just wanted to quickly get this to like test and run and get working, and then from there I can go ahead and subsequently take the configuration now from a header file that IDF creates, which is cool. So I can do that, and then I can actually properly, because none of these things were in the sys idf.zig file at all, and they needed to be. So Wi-Fi technically never worked to its full capacity, and even when it did, some of these are specific to the architecture rather than just a generic Wi-Fi module component that you include here. And then after I did that, it just all clicked, it worked. And then I took out the password for now. And so if I open up app.thing and I just zoom out a little bit here, you can kind of see how the setup is. It's not too bad from the C version, but effectively, you initialize some stuff. I had to make this function just to, it's not in here, and then the user kind of gets to pick this here. Now, if this was an opaque pointer, which I think I will go back and let it be an opaque pointer, is I need to set up a bunch of little Wi-Fi specific function calls to be able to set the SSID, the password, the threshold, and auth mode, and then this bit here as well. And then after I do that, moving forward, every time I need to introduce another component like HTTP or HTTPS server stuff, or maybe TCP SAC, I can just regenerate and not have to keep going back to that file and editing it. The other gotcha is in that one C translator file was the app main needs to be deleted. Although I can maybe do like a string replace on that resulting file as well to automate this a little bit more. And then also see if there's a potential to just do a C import with all the proper paths and macros needed to get this to work. So that's it. It works. It's great. I'm happy. The last thing I want to do with this, I think I'll have for a completely separate little thing on here, because I did this for the Raspberry Pi Pico, and that was in Rust, and that was because when I try to look for these web servers for these little microprocessors, they're, really rudimentary. They didn't they like, you couldn't even do a file upload if you wanted to, and so I wrote all that support in there if you wanna do cookie authorization, stuff like that, session headers. I had all that stuff in there that I built out by hand. I wanna redo that for this, but I don't think this is gonna be for immediate future. I kinda wanna converse with the other guy to see what he wants to do moving forward with this because, obviously, every component that you wanna pull in is specific to the architect that you're using, and I don't think it's going to be fun for anyone to also go through everything I went through just to try to get this to work, and then to find out that the whole setup here for like a sample project is doing worse than if you just wrote parts of it in Zig and translate and did a like a C export, C header export, and omit a lib file, a static library instead, rather than going through this reverse route of this all here.